Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. The Washington Commanders season took a turn that nobody inside the franchise wanted to see, and it happened just when things finally seemed to be falling into place. After a convincing Week 3 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, a game that showcased moments of growth and resilience, the story everyone is talking about isn't the final score. Instead, it's the injury scare involving star wide receiver Terry McLaurin, the heart and soul of Washington's passing attack, and the man who has been the face of the franchise through both rough patches and promising highs. Fans came into this season with high expectations, eager to see if Dan Quinn could bring the kind of toughness and consistency this team has long been searching for, but nothing can derail optimism quite like a key injury. And when that injury involves McLaurin, the alarm bells inside the locker room and across the fan base begin to ring louder than ever. For McLaurin, this season was already about overcoming hurdles. He missed significant time in the summer due to a tense contract standoff with general manager Adam Peters, a situation that had everyone questioning whether the Commanders might enter the year without their most dynamic offensive weapon fully committed or fully in rhythm. That slow ramp-up showed during the first 2 weeks of the season, when McLaurin wasn't quite his explosive self. But against the Raiders, he finally began to resemble the player Washington knows and depends on. 3 catches on 4 targets for 74 yards doesn't leap off the stat sheet, but the way he attacked routes, the way he found separation, and the way he seemed comfortable again in his role all suggested he was turning a corner. Just when the arrow was pointing up, disaster seemed to strike late in the game when McLaurin pulled up with a quad injury that left fans holding their breath. The injury happened after the outcome was already decided. Washington had the game under control, which makes the moment sting even more. McLaurin was questionable to return, but with the win secured, there was no need to risk further damage. On the sidelines, he looked frustrated, knowing how much his presence means to this offense, but also aware of the bigger picture. The Commanders can celebrate the victory, but celebrations feel muted when there's uncertainty surrounding their best offensive weapon. Now, the franchise enters an anxious waiting game, one that will involve MRIs, evaluations, and a lot of prayers from a fan base that has seen this story play out too many times before. What makes this situation especially concerning is the context surrounding Washington's roster. The Commanders are already battling more injuries than most teams can withstand. Star quarterback Jayden Daniels was forced to miss Week 3 with a sprained knee, leaving the offense in the hands of Marcus Mariota, who did enough to secure the win, but is clearly not the long-term answer. Losing McLaurin on top of Daniels, even for a week or two, would be a nightmare scenario. Every successful NFL team needs its playmakers available, but for Washington, McLaurin is more than just another player. He is the engine, the leader, and the tone setter. Take him away, and this team suddenly looks far less threatening against any opponent, let alone a tough matchup with the Atlanta Falcons looming in Week 4. Throughout his career, McLaurin has built a reputation as one of the most durable and reliable wideouts in the league. He doesn't miss games. He plays through pain, through adversity, and through circumstances that would sideline lesser competitors. That's part of what has endeared him to Commanders fans, who see in him not just talent, but a relentless work ethic. Still, even the most durable players are not invincible, and the uncertainty here is what gnaws at the locker room and the fan base alike. Until the medical reports come back and something definitive is announced, everyone will live in that uncomfortable space between hope and fear. Injuries are a cruel reality of the NFL, and for Washington, they seem to be piling up faster than anyone can handle. Head coach Dan Quinn himself wasn't spared, needing stitches after an in-game collision with Mariota. While that moment was more humorous than concerning, it served as a snapshot of just how much bad luck this team has endured in the early weeks of the campaign. Football seasons are often defined by health as much as by talent or coaching, and right now, Washington feels like it's walking on a tightrope. Every additional injury stretches that rope thinner, making the margin for error smaller and the stakes higher. The looming question is simple but pressing. What happens if McLaurin can't go against Atlanta? The Falcons, with their young but improving defense, would suddenly have the luxury of focusing on Washington's secondary options. That would put pressure on receivers like Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel, talented players in their own right, but not nearly the same threat as McLaurin. It would also put even more on the shoulders of the quarterback, whether that's a recovering Daniels or a steady but limited Mariota. Without McLaurin drawing coverage, creating mismatches, and giving the offense a true focal point, Washington risks becoming predictable, and predictability is the death sentence of NFL offenses. For fans, the emotional toll is just as real as the tactical one. McLaurin isn't just another player in burgundy and gold. He is the embodiment of everything this team wants to represent: consistency, professionalism, and resilience in the face of chaos. Through years of front office drama, coaching changes, and quarterback instability, he has been the one constant they could rely on every Sunday. That's why seeing him limp off the field, even if it turns out to be precautionary, felt like a gut punch. It wasn't just about a quad muscle. It was about the fear of losing the one thing that has felt stable for so long. The Commanders' victory over the Raiders should have been a moment to build momentum, to point to as evidence that this team is finding its identity under Quinn. Instead, the narrative has shifted entirely to McLaurin's health. That's the cruel irony of sports. A win can feel like a loss when the cost is too high. Over the next several days, the updates will trickle out, each one dissected and debated by fans and media alike. If the news is good, if McLaurin is cleared and ready to go, it will be a sigh of relief and a rallying point. But if the news is bad, if this injury lingers or forces him to the sidelines, the Commanders' season outlook changes dramatically. Washington knows what's at stake. The NFC East is unforgiving, and falling behind early because of injuries could put this team in a hole too deep to climb out of. Every week matters, and every star player matters even more. McLaurin is not just a piece of the puzzle. He is the cornerstone of the offensive structure. Without him, that structure risks crumbling. That's why the next few days feel so crucial, not just for Week 4, but for the trajectory of the entire season. For now, all the Commanders can do is wait. Wait for test results, wait for medical opinions, and wait for clarity. But waiting is the hardest part, especially when it involves a player as vital as Terry McLaurin. The win over the Raiders gave them momentum, but whether they can carry that momentum forward depends largely on the health of their star wideout. Anything less than good news comes with grave consequences, consequences that could define whether this season is remembered as one of progress or one of wasted potential. In the NFL, moments like this can swing everything, and Washington stands at that very crossroads right now, holding its breath, hoping its cornerstone will be ready to stand tall once again. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. The news coming out of Washington has fans buzzing, insiders whispering, and the entire NFL world raising an eyebrow. Because if the rumors are to be believed, Terry McLaurin has just signed a massive contract extension that will tie him to the franchise all the way until the year 2030. We're not talking about just another extension here. Not just another restructured deal with a couple of guaranteed years to keep a star happy. What people are saying, what insiders are leaking, is that this move makes McLaurin the single highest paid player in the history of the franchise, a true mega deal that locks in one of the most consistent and beloved wide receivers in the league. For years, fans have debated whether Washington would be willing to commit long-term money to the players who actually make a difference on the field. This deal, if confirmed, sends a crystal-clear message. Terry McLaurin is not going anywhere, and the team is building its future around him. Now, the chatter around this isn't just about numbers, though the numbers themselves are jaw-dropping. Reports suggest that the guaranteed money is astronomical, the kind of figure that immediately shifts market expectations for wide receivers across the NFL. It's being whispered that the annual value might rival or even surpass what some of the elite receivers are earning right now. When you look at the names dominating the receiver market, guys like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, McLaurin's deal supposedly puts him right up there with them, maybe even above, depending on how the final structure plays out. For Washington fans, this is both shocking and reassuring. Shocking because the franchise hasn't always been known for paying its stars at the right time, and reassuring because for once, the leadership is showing that it understands how valuable a steady, reliable, and explosive wideout like McLaurin can be. Think about what McLaurin has meant to this team since he was drafted. year after year, regardless of who was under center, regardless of the chaos swirling around the front office, regardless of coaching changes or inconsistent offensive lines, McLaurin has delivered. He's been the steady heartbeat of the offense, the player who defenses know they need to scheme against but still struggle to stop. He's produced 1,000-yard seasons with a carousel of quarterbacks, proving his ability to adapt, adjust, and shine no matter the circumstances. For the fans, he's been more than just a top-tier wideout. He's been a symbol of resilience, of loyalty, of commitment to the game even when the franchise itself felt unstable. Locking him down until 2030 isn't just a football decision. It's a cultural one, a statement of identity for a team that's been desperate to rewrite its story. But of course, whenever a deal of this magnitude hits the rumor mill, there's a ripple effect. Other players will be watching. Other agents will be calculating. The receiver market is one of the most competitive and fluid in the NFL, and whenever a contract like this gets signed, it resets the conversation. If McLaurin is making this much, then what happens when someone like C.D. Lamb, Jamar Chase, or even Amon-Ra St. Brown sits down at the table for their own extensions? You can bet that their agents will point to McLaurin's numbers as the benchmark, the new floor for negotiations. And if Washington was willing to stretch this far to keep its star, then it suggests the front office is no longer afraid of competing with the big spenders in the league. That, in itself, is a seismic shift. For the locker room, this also carries weight. Players talk. They notice when their teammates are rewarded. They notice when loyalty is valued. A mega extension for McLaurin sends a message not just to the fan base, but to the guys in the trenches, to the rookies, to the veterans who might be wondering whether Washington is the kind of place where careers can flourish. It tells them that if you perform, if you give everything to the team, the organization will stand by you. That message might not always have been clear in past years, but with this rumored deal, it becomes loud and undeniable. McLaurin becomes the face of the franchise, the standard bearer, the example that young players will point to as proof that excellence is rewarded here. There are skeptics, of course. Whenever big money is involved, the questions come fast. Can McLaurin maintain this level of performance deep into his 30s? Will his body hold up under the grind of NFL seasons? Is it smart for the franchise to commit so much money to one player when roster building requires balance and depth across all positions? These are the valid concerns that critics will raise, and they aren't to be dismissed lightly. Yet, those same critics have to acknowledge that McLaurin has never shown signs of slowing down, has never carried a reputation for fragility, and has consistently shown professionalism in keeping himself ready for every season. If anyone has earned the benefit of the doubt, it's him. Beyond the numbers and beyond the field, this rumored contract also reshapes McLaurin's legacy. By staying in Washington until 2030, he positions himself as potentially the greatest receiver in franchise history, a player whose name could be etched alongside the legends when all is said and done. Think about the stability this offers his career narrative. No jumping from team to team late in his career. No becoming a journeyman chasing rings or paychecks. Instead, he could go down as the loyal face of Washington's offense for over a decade, a rare story in today's NFL where so much is about constant movement and short-term gain. The fan reaction has already been electric. On social media, you can see the excitement bubbling, with supporters celebrating the idea that their favorite receiver isn't going anywhere. For a fan base that has been craving hope, consistency, and pride in their team, this move hits on all those emotions. There's a sense that, finally, Washington is serious about holding on to its stars, about rewarding the guys who have carried the load through tough times. The McLaurin extension isn't just about money. It's about faith, about sending a message that this team has a plan, a cornerstone, and a leader who embodies what the franchise wants to become. And perhaps that's the most important part of all. In the NFL, contracts are more than just financial agreements. They're symbols. They're signals of intent. When Washington locks up McLaurin until 2030 with a record-breaking contract, it's not just saying, we want to keep a good player. It's declaring, this is the guy we believe in, the guy who represents who we are and who we want to be. In a league where trust and stability are hard to come by, that statement resonates. Fans hear it. Players hear it. Rivals hear it. And Terry McLaurin, who has carried himself with quiet confidence and unshakable determination, finally gets the recognition he deserves in the form of a contract that secures his future and cements his place in Washington football history. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.